You're watching Thrifty Kaniffy. Hello everyone and welcome to Thrifty Kaniffy. Today we're going to be looking at the Texas Stockman pattern from Rough Ryder. Now it's a little confusing because they've used different names for the pattern, but the latest name that I think they've used was Texas Stockman. Sometimes it's called the Jumbo Stockman. Or I've even seen it called the Large Stockman, which to me is incorrect because they have another knife that's a Large Stockman. But this is the 4 7/8 inch length closed knife that we're discussing here, to clarify. And I have already shown this knife in another video, another review, and shown this knife in another review. You can go check those out. And here's another I've not shown or reviewed, and this is in the Celestial series. So in the Celestial series, this is model number 2067. The Stag bone is model number RR1799. The Coral series, we have RR2275. And the Faded Blue Jeans series, we have model number 2355 or RR2355. Now, the Texas Stockman is not without issue, and I don't necessarily recommend this to people who want to use this as I don't know, how should I say this, a knife to rely on to be 100% perfect. If you guys are one of those that want your knives to be absolutely flawless, this is probably not the pattern that you want to collect. The reason I say that is this design is it's just flawed. It's a flawed design. This middle blade, the sheep's foot blade, is just not positioned in a way that can reliably shut and close, or not prevent one of the other two blades from shutting or closing. I've had to send back 2 of the 4 knives that you see here to get one that will close on its own. So I think there's an inherent flaw with this design, and until they correct it, I'm probably not going to be investing anymore in these knives. It's virtually impossible to use these knives without getting blade rub, which I accept from a Stockman. I 100% just accept that as a potential problem. But when you start getting into knives that won't even close on their own accord because the blade is interfering with another one inside the cavity, that's where I draw the line. So probably not going to be buying any more of these. Now, that said, I really enjoy this knife. I wish that that was not the case, and I hope at some point they do something to better correct this center blade. As I see it, I'm not a designer, so this is obviously just my opinion. One of the main problems you have here is that this center sheep's foot blade should not be spaced so far apart in the center from the front blade. If you look at the back, you'll see that these liners on the exterior are much thinner than the one used in the middle. Why they opted to use such a thick middle liner, I don't know. You would think maybe that would create more space, but it doesn't, because it causes an issue where you have to crank the blade so much that it can't provide clearance to the rear blade, and then also up here it interferes with the front blade. So it's basically hitting both blades. You're hitting here at the rear blade, and you're hitting up here at the front blade because of the angle that it has to encroach to try to make clearance. If you had made this spacer thinner, you could have moved that blade inward some, and it could have just been straight and tucked straight between the two blades. But that is what it is. And that aside, I really, really like this knife. I like the clip point blade on it. I like the pull on it. I like the half stops on it. The swedge looks good. It doesn't interfere with the nail nick. Now, I don't necessarily need to. I actually prefer the nail nick at the front of the knife because it gives you more leverage to pull it and open it. Not that you can't do it with this one, but either way, I guess it's not a big deal either way, but I suppose if I was only going to have one, I'd probably have it at the front there. And then sheep's foot blade, on some of these, the nail nick can kind of get tucked in there. This one's not too bad, you'll notice, but this one is a lot worse. It's much more difficult to get into that one. Again, this one interferes. So there's a little bit of an issue with that middle blade being able to be accessed with the other blades closed. So all in all, it just needs some tweaking to be a great knife. But as it is, you know, you can expect to have problems. You can expect to have issues with this knife. I mean, you might have to go through 3 knives to find one you're happy with. So, you know, I would just heed caution if you like this knife. I'm not saying they're all going to be bad, because, you know, obviously I found eventually ones that I was willing to accept, but I had to send this one back for a replacement and this one back for a replacement before I got one that I enjoyed. So, that being said, let's kind of just go over the blade lengths and some of the weights and things and some of the specifications. What you've got here is a clip blade at the front, and it is a 3.5 inch blade, and then the cutting edge is 3.25 inches. The sheep's foot, which is probably one of my favorite sheep's foot blades on any knife, which makes it all the harder to accept that this blade is flawed, is about 2 5/8 inches, and then you've got a 2.25 inch cutting edge. All right, and the final blade is the spade blade, which, though I'm not a massive fan of spade blades, I don't find this one to be too offensive. I think it's a fairly decent styled spade blade, and it's a 2.5 inch full length and 2.25 inch cutting edge on it. Again, now this is the faded blue jeans. You can see the underliners there are in orange. You get this shield on the, like the modern style knives that Rough Ryder has been releasing now. Their latest shield, I guess. Now this does still have the RT on it, but I think they're moving away from that, and I think, you know, the Tough Stag may be the last Large Stockman that we see in a series with the RT. I do believe they're making this in the Tough Stag, which I'll probably be skipping out on. Now, the other one here that I've not shown on the channel before is the Celestial series, and it's got a really remarkable handle on it that changes quite a bit when you're in sunlight. So if you're a fan of those knives that kind of really show themselves off in the sunlight, this is a great one, because this handle is translucent and it does all kinds of really cool things in the light. It gives you a lot of color that you wouldn't otherwise notice while you're carrying it inside. But yeah, this knife has a lot. It's just sort of a love-hate relationship with this one. I like it a lot. If it was a little better, you know, in terms of its blade situation here, the way that they're tucked in there, if it was a little better, I'd be, you know, having glowing. This would be a glowing review, because I otherwise, you know, I really like this knife. Now, if that doesn't bother you, that those blades are going to rub and they're going to get scratched, and you're using it as a user and you need a larger knife, you know, then this is probably a great knife for that. But you know, if you're kind of using it as a part of a collection and you just kind of want the most pristine example, and you don't want any issues with things rubbing or scratching or becoming devalued by their mere, you know, ability to open the blades. So there's that perspective. Some people are going to be looking for, you know, pristine working examples and that don't want any kind of a flawed knife. Well, this is a flawed knife, and I think you're rolling the dice if you think you can order one and not have an issue. I mean, you can get lucky. obviously shown that, you know, with persistence you can get ones that don't rub really badly and will close. But it's not a knife I can use and not scratch. I mean, the blades are going to rub if you use it in any meaningful way. So, all right, so let's take a quick look at the weights of all these. This is the Coral Snake series, and we have a weight in ounces of 5.217. The Brown Stag comes in at 5.433. The Celestial is 5.186. And finally, the Faded Blue Jeans is 5.326. There you have it. There's my review of these knives. Again, really like them, but they do have issues. So please, Rough Ryder, if you're listening, if you address this will be a knife that's fantastic. But that's going to do it for me, guys, on this one. I hope you enjoyed the maybe not so great review, but informative all the more, I hope. And you guys have a fantastic day. Take care.